Some places are haunted because something terrible happened there. Others are haunted because something terrible was never allowed to leave. And then there are the places where the haunting feels older than the buildings, older than the land, older than the names we give it. Zoos are not the first places people think of when they imagine ghosts. They're bright, they're noisy, full of families and animals and sunlight. But if you listen closely, if you walk the paths after closing, I think that would actually be breaking and entering. Don't do that. If you stand still long enough to feel the air shift, you begin to understand why these places hold on to the dead. In Fort Worth, the haunting begins with a man who loved his animals so deeply that even death didn't break the bond. Michael Bell, an elephant keeper crushed in 1987, is still seen walking the paths he once walked in life, checking on the elephants he never stopped caring for. His presence is quiet, steady, protective, a keeper who simply refused to leave his post. In Chicago, the story is older, heavier. Lincoln Park Zoo sits atop a cemetery the city abandoned rather than remove. Tens of thousands were buried there, and their graves remain. The dead surface as shadows, footsteps, and figures drifting through the trees. The land remembers what the city tried to forget. And in Philadelphia, the ghosts live in the tunnels, long, echoing passageways beneath America's oldest zoo. Staff hear footsteps behind them, voices calling from empty rooms, and see figures standing at the far end of corridors that should be silent. The Victorian buildings above ground hold their own echoes, a woman at a window, a child's laughter in an empty playhouse, a colonial figure pacing the halls of a mansion older than the zoo itself. 3 zoos, 3 different histories, 3 different kinds of hauntings, but all of them share the same truth. Places built to house the living often end up holding the dead as well. And sometimes, if you're quiet enough, you can hear them. The keeper who never left, the cemetery that still breathes beneath the soil, the tunnels that whisper when no one is there. Today we walk into the places where animals sleep and ghosts wake. Today we follow the paths of the ones who stayed behind.
The Fort Worth Zoo opened in 1909, a small collection of animals on the edge of a growing Texas city. Over the decades, it expanded into one of the most respected zoological institutions in the country, but its history carries a shadow that never quite lifts. Among the zoo's oldest stories, one name returns again and again. It was Michael Bell, an elephant trainer remembered for his skill, his gentleness, and the way he seemed to understand the animals in his care. His death is a matter of public record. In 1987, Bell's tragic death occurred as he attempted to move a 4-ton bull elephant and 2 females into a larger pen. Although no one witnessed what happened, investigators believe Sam, the elephant, knocked Bell down with his trunk and stepped on his head. The incident was sudden, violent, and deeply shocking to the staff, who had watched him move with such confidence and calm among the animals he loved. Not long after Bell's death, the reports began. Keepers working late described seeing a man walking the same paths Bell once walked, lingering near the elephant enclosures long after the zoo had closed. Some saw him clearly enough to assume a coworker was finishing rounds, only to discover no one else had been scheduled in that area. Visitors occasionally captured a man on camera standing near the elephant habitat, watching quietly, only to realize later that no staff were present at the time. Paranormal databases and historical guides list the Fort Worth Zoo as haunted by the ghost of a former elephant trainer named Michael Bell, and the sightings cluster with uncanny consistency around the elephant grounds. The details rarely change. A figure in keeper's clothing, a shadowed outline that moves with purpose, a sudden cold spot in the Texas heat, a sense of someone watching over the animals rather than threatening them. The behavior is always the same: walking, observing, never interacting directly. The timing is predictable too. After closing, during early morning prep, or in the quiet hours when the zoo is nearly empty. Researchers often point out that hauntings tied to sudden traumatic death are common, but zoo hauntings are rare. Bell's case stands out because of the emotional weight surrounding it. His bond with the elephants, the abruptness of his death, the familiarity of his routine, and the long history of the zoo itself. Some investigators believe his presence isn't restless at all, but protective. A keeper who simply never stopped keeping watch. Decades later, his story is still told by staff, visitors, and paranormal researchers. The Fort Worth Zoo doesn't comment on hauntings, but the consistency of the reports keeps his memory alive. In a way, Michael Bell remains exactly where he always was, walking the paths between the elephants, making sure everything is as it should be.
Lincoln Park Zoo sits in the center of Chicago like a bright, living heart. Children laughing, animals pacing, the skyline rising behind it in clean lines of steel and glass. But beneath the walkways and manicured lawns, beneath the hooves and paws and stroller wheels, the ground remembers something older, something heavier, something the city tried to bury twice. Long before the zoo existed, this land was the old Chicago City Cemetery, the primary burial ground for a young, rapidly growing city. From the 1840s through the 1860s, tens of thousands were laid to rest here, victims of the cholera epidemics, Civil War dead, and the poor and unclaimed. The cemetery stretched across what is now the park, the zoo, and the surrounding neighborhoods. When Chicago decided to relocate the cemetery in the late 1800s, the plan was simple: move the bodies, reclaim the land, and build something new. But the removals were sloppy, rushed, incomplete. Families who could afford it reclaimed their dead. The city handled the rest, and the city, even then, was not known for its thoroughness. Historians estimate that hundreds to thousands of bodies were never moved at all. They remain where they were buried, beneath the grass, beneath the paths, beneath the animal houses. Construction crews still find bones. In 1998, workers expanding the park unearthed human remains, confirming what locals had whispered about for generations. The dead were never truly gone. The zoo is built on top of them. Visitors don't see the cemetery anymore, but the land hasn't forgotten. People walking the zoo at dusk report the same strange sensations: a sudden drop in temperature on a warm night, the feeling of being watched, and footsteps behind them on empty paths. Some see figures, fleeting and pale, moving between buildings or standing near the old ladies' pavilion before dissolving into the dark. A woman in white appears often enough that she has become part of the zoo's unofficial folklore, drifting along the edges of the lagoon or pausing near the cafe as if searching for something she lost long ago. Staff members, especially those who work late, speak quietly about doors opening and closing in locked structures, or the sound of footsteps pacing the service tunnels beneath the grounds. Security guards have reported seeing a man walking along the path near the Lion House after closing, only to find no one on the cameras and no footprints in the dew. Paranormal investigators capture orbs, voices, and unexplained movement with unsettling regularity. The zoo doesn't advertise these stories, but it doesn't deny them either. It simply continues, alive on the surface, haunted underneath. In the middle of Lincoln Park stands the last visible reminder of what this place once was: the Couch Mausoleum, a granite tomb built around 1857. It is the only surviving above-ground structure from the old cemetery, a stone island in a sea of grass. People walking past it at night report seeing a figure standing at the entrance, watching silently. Others hear sounds from the inside of the sealed tomb, soft, muffled, impossible to explain. The mausoleum is a stop on the haunted history tours led by historian Adam Selzer, who specializes in Chicago's buried past. He tells visitors that the tomb is not a relic, it is a warning, a reminder that the dead were never fully moved, only built over.
Let me
Mhm.
just interrupt real quick. Can you imagine how many people don't know about this? Like, and
Mhm.
they're just walking through like Lincoln Park and stuff, or
I would
anywhere
have
in
never
that
known
area.
as
And
going to Chicago or and going to the park and stuff. I would have never known unless I specifically looked it up.
and then how would you feel after finding something out about that? Would you still walk through that area?
I would. They
I know a lot of people that probably wouldn't, just because.
would feel like it's disrespectful, maybe.
No, I don't know anybody like that. There's nobody that I know anything like that. You know,
Either.
when me and my son are the ones walking through a cemetery and we're walking around gravesites so we don't step on people, you
Yeah,
know, just to be or respectful to these people, and other people's are just walking wherever they want, they're wherever they please.
yeah.
I don't know anybody that tries to be respectful. No, I'm thinking more along the lines of like, ooh, spooky, something's gonna get me sort of deal, where they're like, because there's all these bodies underground now right below where I walk every day. Like,
I, there probably are people that would feel that way. I personally, I don't know. I don't always feel like the dead hang out at cemeteries.
mhm,
I do feel like
they're usually laying down.
I do feel like maybe the disturbance of uh, the buried possibly um, could cause conflict, and maybe they would linger for that, which is kind of what's happened here. For some, I think some were disturbed and moved, and some were not, and some were just built over. But if you really think about it, we, Earth's been around for so long. I mean, my house that was built in the 80s is there's probably bones somewhere underneath the structure of my property.
Well, and that's really when it comes into like the depth, right? Like,
Yeah,
how far down? Like, if the
right.
between 200 feet and possibly 10 feet, that's a
Yeah.
there's a
I
difference, I
mean,
think, in people's minds with that.
there were battles fought here, and this is where the mass migration was for like the Trail of
Hmm.
Tears. So, I mean, yeah, my house is probably on top of some dead bodies.
Hmm.
Not like 6 feet under kind of thing,
No, I mean,
but
uh,
you know what I mean?
I would agree with you too. Like, and we've talked about that before because we're talking about consecrated ground,
Hmm.
consecrated grounds, and how
Yeah,
people think cemeteries are sacred. Well, I mean, or burial, native burial grounds we were talking about.
yeah.
And realistically,
Hmm.
it's like it don't matter where you go. There's gonna be a dead body somewhere.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
really is.
The zoo's hauntings are not tied to animal tragedy or violent events within its walls. They are older than the zoo itself. They belong to the land, to the thousands who were buried here, forgotten, paved over, and left to linger beneath the living. The apparitions are not malicious, they are echoes, people who were never given the dignity of a proper relocation, whose graves were disturbed, whose names were lost. They walk the paths because the paths were once theirs. They drift through the zoo because the zoo stands where their families once mourned them. Lincoln Park Zoo is beautiful in the daylight, but at night, when the crowds thin and the animals settle, the past rises. The air feels colder, the shadows lengthen, and if you stand very still near the old mausoleum or the quiet paths behind the animal houses, you may feel it, the weight of the forgotten dead, the ones who never left, the ones who still walk beneath the living world.
The Philadelphia Zoo is the oldest in America. a place where Victorian architecture rises like a memory of another century, and the paths curve through gardens planted long before anyone alive today was born. It feels genteel in the daylight, ornate ironwork, red brick buildings, and the quiet hum of families moving between exhibits. But beneath that polished surface, the zoo carries a history that has never fully settled. The land remembers what happened here, and the buildings remember too. The hauntings begin with the tunnels. Beneath the zoo runs a network of old passageways built in the 19th century, originally intended for moving animals and supplies without disturbing the public. They are narrow, brick lined, and older than most of the city's modern skyline. Staff who walk them after hours report the same things: footsteps behind them on empty floors, the sound of someone breathing just out of sight, the unmistakable sensation of being followed. Some describe hearing a woman's voice calling from deeper in the tunnel. Soft, distant,
Mm.
impossible to trace. When they check the security logs, no one else has been below. The most famous of these tunnels is the Penrose Building Tunnel, a long, echoing corridor that has become the center of the zoo's paranormal reputation. Workers have seen a figure at the far end, a man in old fashioned clothing standing still, watching. When approached, he vanishes. Others report a sudden drop in temperature, so sharp it feels like stepping into another season. Paranormal investigators who have been granted access describe capturing EVPs of footsteps, whispers, and what sounds like someone pacing in a locked room. Above ground, the Victorian buildings carry their own ghosts. The Shelley Building, once used for administrative offices, is known for lights turning on and off in empty rooms and the sound of furniture moving when no one is inside. Staff have reported seeing a woman standing at the window on the second floor, staring out toward the zoo grounds. When they go upstairs to check, the room is empty and cold. The treehouse, a children's play area built inside a historic structure, has its own stories. Parents have reported feeling a hand tug at their clothing when no child is near. Fuck that shit. Some hear laughter. Not the
That's your
bright.
favorite.
No, yeah, super favorite. Super favorite. So,
I'm scared of werewolves. You're scared of babies.
that are ghosts, okay? I've had children. I know what children are like. I enjoy my children. Ghost children, they're built different, all right?
Mm.
Some hear laughter, not the bright, chaotic laughter of children at play, but something softer, older, echoing from the rafters. One staff member closing the building for the night saw a small figure dart behind a pillar. Thinking a child had been left behind, they
It's a ghost
searched the
baby.
entire structure. Yeah, yep. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. It was a good observation. Thinking a child had been left behind, they searched the entire structure. And guess what? No one was there. The zoo's most unsettling reports was just that. That was the most unsettling reports, in my opinion. The zoo's most unsettling reports come from the Solitude House, the 18th century mansion that predates the zoo itself. Built in 1785 for John Penn, the last colonial governor of Pennsylvania, the house stands apart from the exhibits, quiet and dignified. But inside, the atmosphere shifts. Staff describe hearing footsteps on the upper floors when the building is locked. Doors open and close on their own. A man in colonial clothing has been seen walking the hallway, disappearing through a door that leads to a wall. Some believe it is Penn himself, still pacing the home he once ruled from. Others think the house simply absorbed too much history to ever be still. Visitors rarely know these stories. They see the animals, the gardens, the families gathered at the exhibits. They don't see the shadows that move where no one should be, or the figures that appear in the corners of a security footage, or the bastard children that are wandering around tugging on shirts, or the way the air changes in the tunnels beneath their feet. But the staff know, the investigators know, and the buildings, with their century-old bones and their memories of another world, also know.
Are you saying you don't want to go to the treehouse? That's where
I'm
the
saying,
child laughter was, right?
I'm saying you'll probably have to drag me there if you want me to go see that stuff, which you're not going to drag me, nor will you go there. So, no, I don't have to go.
You know, they probably didn't find anything because ghost babies are really good at hiding.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yep. They sure are. The Philadelphia Zoo, moving on, is beautiful in the daylight, but at night it becomes something else entirely. The tunnels breathe. The old houses shift. The past rises like mist from the ground. And if you walk the paths alone after closing, you may feel it. That tug on your t-shirt, the untying of your shoes, or the sticky fingers of a small child gripping your thumb. The presence of those who lived, worked, and died on this land long before the zoo existed, still moving through the spaces they once called their own.
Are you sure you don't want to go to the treehouse?
I told you, you'll have to drag me. You're
You
not going
wouldn't
to
go
drag
there.
me, so we don't need to go.
Would you go to the other buildings?
Without the children?
Would you go to that zoo and go everywhere but the treehouse?
You see, my luck would be that those children would know about my fear and they would follow me. So no, you'd still have to drag me, I'm sure.
Okay, so you wouldn't even go to that zoo at all.
I'd prefer
Because
to leave
somewhere-
ghost children alone.
Because somewhere there'd be ghost children.
Ghost children are more likely to bug at me, yeah. Did I ever tell you about my very odd shower experience?
No, I don't think I don't think you have.
Okay.
I think it's safe to say you've never discussed that with me.
Okay. Well, there was a time long ago when I was still married. And the wife at the time wanted to always have a translucent curtain because she always feared that somebody would be standing in the bathroom staring at her, or something would show up ghost like and stand there and stare at her menacingly, or whatever the case is. Okay? So we had we basically just had the liner up. Just
I mean, I
a
think that's
translucent
kind of-
liner.
It's not an uncommon fear.
It's not, and I didn't mind it. I was like, whatever. You know, and I walk into the bathroom and I get a view anyway, so it's all good. Whatever. But my problem was when I was in the shower. Because the thing is as you know, Michelle, maybe not everybody already knows this about me listening, but Michelle, you know this, that I do feel presences and I do feel that occasional something's there feeling, right?
Yeah.
For the first apartment that we lived in, and partly the second apartment we lived in, because these things followed me, okay? There were children, for whatever fucking reason, 2 little ghost children that would sit there with their hands cupped around their face looking through that curtain. And it was always when I was washing my hair.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at you.
You do too. You do too, because it's funny sounding. And I would laugh too.
That's a crappy feeling, though.
But
I mean,
it made no sense to me. Why the fuck are these little children looking through this curtain at me? I'm like freaking out, and it bugged me all the time. And so we made a compromise, okay? We ended up making a compromise, and it was the stupidest, weirdest looking compromise. The whole shower had the liner, but only half the shower had curtain that you couldn't see through. For my fucking sake.
Yeah. I don't know. They probably weren't ghost children. They were probably something else.
Yeah, I mean, they could have took the form of it, but that's what I felt
That's what
because it was
they.
about waist height on me. That was
Yeah.
just looking in through that curtain, and I wasn't down with that. And they took
Yeah.
the whatever it was, whether it be children or it took the form of children. It just cemented that feeling. I don't fucking like ghost children.
No, it makes sense. I get that. It's so funny though. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's a crappy experience. I don't like that feeling.
Mm-mm,
I mean,
mm-mm.
my house is pretty busy with um, stuff that isn't living,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been several times when I'm in the shower, and it's always when you're at your most vulnerable points.
Mm-hmm.
You're washing your face. You
When
got
your
soap
eyes
in
are
your eye.
closed. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
it doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened a couple of times. I most of the time, whenever I'm experiencing stuff like that, it is in other places of the house. It's not really in there, but it does happen sometimes, and it is a crappy feeling because you're just kind of helpless, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But yeah, I don't know. So you said that these things followed you. Did they
Yeah.
not follow you anymore?
No. The I don't know. It was because I started practicing a bit more craft than I used to when I was
Mm-hmm.
because when I was single, I was practicing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then when I got married, the practice kind of fell off because I was busy being husband or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so the practice kind of fell away. But that first apartment, they were there. And then we moved to a second apartment and they were there for part of the time. And I don't know what happened, but they just stopped being there. I don't know if it was because I deterred them with my not see through purple curtain.
Or maybe they were there, you just didn't see them anymore.
Please, okay? There's a very good possibility that they weren't just waist height and they could have been peeking over the top of the rail. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we don't need to bring that into thought because I've had that feeling too where things were looking over me at the over the top of the curtain. And I'm sitting there looking up because I'm rinsing my hair and I'm sitting there going, I probably shouldn't open my eyes right now. So yeah, please. Thank you. You
Yeah.
keep inviting those thoughts in because I've spent so much time diminishing myself from to even thinking about that.
You're gonna have to do some work once we get out of studio today to get crush those thoughts. Yeah, no, I knew somebody, and I've probably told this story before. I know I have actually. Knew somebody that talked about something that used to mess with their hair, and then one time, their house was haunted, and this something would mess with their hair, and then one time it happened while they're driving down the road, and I was like, "Oh well, honey, your house isn't haunted, you are,"
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
freaked her the fuck out. Like she was like, "Oh, nope, I don't want to talk about it anymore." I'm like, okay. I was giggling on the inside though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's funny and it's the reactions are funny. Like at the time, I was freaking out inside because there was something there watching me. But
Yeah.
then but now, yeah, absolutely, laugh at me because it is a funny story. And the fact that it has made me scared of ghost children, like
Yeah.
it's funny. It's funny. I'm a full grown 42-year-old man.
Yeah. I mean, I laugh because I've had these epiphanies myself. Like, oh, the house is haunted. And then I go somewhere and it happens when I'm not at the house that is
Mm-hmm.
supposedly haunted. Apparently, it's me, it's following me, it's not the location,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. I've had those kinds of experiences that vary. So I'm gonna laugh because I have also dealt with that. But yeah, sorry. Kind
Don't be.
of. Still
No, don't
funny.
you no, don't say sorry. You don't need to be sorry. It's funny.
I'm
Please
just
laugh.
reminding you that you need to continue to, I guess, practice and protect yourself. Maybe that's all
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is.
No, and I do. I mean that's part of the reason why I carry stones with me, and
Yeah.
those of us that carry stones, we know why we carry our stones. They don't need
Yeah.
to be pretty, but sometimes they are just because they're pretty, you know? But there are times
They
we
are
carry
pretty.
stones or wear stones
Yeah.
because we use them. So
I used to put them in my pockets, and I got tired of finding them in my washing machine and my dryer, so I
Next, a little
don't
polished.
don't do that anymore.
No, I stick mine in my pockets, but I empty my pockets every time I come back home. So
I don't.
because I use public washers and dryers and I don't want to lose my shit.
Yeah, I could see getting in the habit for that reason. I just, when I'm doing laundry, I just dump it. If it's in the pocket, it's going in there with it.
Hmm.
I don't even think about it. I I will some if I'm washing someone else's laundry, like if someone's borrowing my washer or dryer, I will check pockets because I have washed and dried too many ink pens and markers
Oh
and
God,
ruined entire
yes.
loads of
Oh my
clothes.
God,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then it's like it's marked all on the inside
Yep.
of your washer. Well, usually the dryer, and then you got to clean that off, or it's going to heat up while it's drying and come off on the next load, and
Yep.
it's a mess. Anyway, in the end, the stories from Fort Worth, Chicago, and Philadelphia remind us of something simple and unsettling. The boundary between the living and the dead is thinner than we pretend. A keeper who never stopped walking his rounds. A cemetery buried beneath a zoo, its forgotten dead rising through the soil in whispers and footsteps. A network of tunnels where voices echo long after the living have gone home. 3 cities, 3 histories, 3 kinds of hauntings, and yet the same quiet truth runs through all of them. The past does not stay buried. Love does not always let go. And the places we build for life sometimes become sanctuaries for the dead who linger. If you ever find yourself in one of these zoos after the crowds have faded and the night settles in, listen. Feel the air shift. Notice the way the shadows move at the edges of the path. You may sense the keeper watching over his elephants. You may feel the weight of the cemetery beneath your feet. You may hear footsteps in a tunnel that should be empty. These are not stories meant to frighten, but to remind us that memory has a body and history has a pulse, and some spirits stay not out of fear or anger, but because something in this world still calls to them.